Hello, my name is Cal Gerard. I am a two-spirited Plains Cree beadwork artist from Sturgeon Lake, Saskatchewan, currently based out of Saskatoon. I was asked to come into SIT today to film a Pride beaded keychain for the month of Pride by the Maker Lodge staff here. So I curated these keychain kits with the Maker Lodge staff here, so we'll go over the contents. So we've got all of the Pride colors and beads here. We've got our Pellin, and I already glued down a cabochon there. We've got our vinyl backing. We've got our super glue to glue down the cab and for the backing as well. We've got a couple threads here as well and our needles. We've got our key ring, and then we've got our cabochons here as well. Any extras if you don't like the one that I'm currently using. So for starters, I already did it off camera. I started by gluing down this cab here with the super glue. You just kind of get the surface of the back of the cab glued, and then you stick it to the Pellin, and the super glue dries really fast. And then next what I will do is I will prepare my needles. I'm going to be using the 2-needle method for today. So I will get those out, and then I will get them threaded. So once you have a decent length of thread, you will cut it, and then you will start to thread your needles. So what you do is you'll grab your needle and you'll find the hole at the end, and then you will just stick the thread right through there. So yeah, with the 2-needle method, one of your needles will be holding your beads. The other needle that you have will be used to tack your beads down. So I'm just gonna cut off the excess thread here. And what I'll do is I will pick up my Pellin here with my glued down cab. I will go through the bottom here. And it doesn't have to be super close to the cab for the first stitch here. It's just to hold the beads. So the second stitch, you'll go closer to the cab. And then going through the top, going through the bottom again once more will secure the thread holding your beads. So one thing I like to do to secure the thread even more is I will take a lighter and I will burn the little extra thread at the back there. And then you'll just kind of press it down there like that. So you have your needle and thread ready that's going to hold your beads. The next step will be to get your needle ready. That's going to be tacking your beads down. So I'm going to be threading my second needle here. And once again, you're just going to get a nice long piece there. So then you aren't constantly rethreading as often. And you will thread your second needle here. So once again, just triple knotting it pretty much just to get a nice and tight little tie on there. Perfect. And then now we are ready to start beading and tacking down our beads. So we're gonna go with the first color of the Pride rainbow, which is red. Now that I've got both my beading threads ready. So what I like to do is I'll pour the red out onto my little beading mat here. And I will get that ready. So then what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your needle and thread that you use for holding your beads, and you're gonna take as many beads as you'd like. So I like to get 8 beads at a time there, and I like to stitch down every 2 beads. So basically you will kind of grab the thread there, and you'll push the beads up to where you first stitched them down so that they're nice and tight there. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna grab your second needle here and you're gonna start to tack your beads down. So I'm gonna be tacking down every 2. So I'm gonna go through the bottom here, and I'll go through the top, So just tacking down my first 2 beads. So I found the first 2 beads, I went through the bottom between there, and I'm gonna go through them now through the top. And then I'll pull that string through. And then that's my first 2 beads tacked down there and stabilized. So then I'll just continue the process here for the rest of the red, just tacking down every 2 beads here. One thing also that I recommend doing for most projects is I like to cut off the edges so they're not as sharp of corners, just because sometimes your thread will get caught on the edge and you can notice that a little later, and there's not as much retention for your beads there. So I'm just gonna go around and around the edges there just to ensure that I don't get the thread caught. Perfect. All right, and then I'll continue on with my row of red beads here. So I'm just going to be tacking down my last 2 beads for my first row here. So what I'm going to do is I'll take my thread that I used to tack my beads down. I'll go between those last 2 beads and the beads that I started. And I'm just going to tack those down with this thread. And then just for smoothness, for the look of the lines, what I'll do is I'll take the needle and thread that I was using to hold the beads, and what I'll do is I'll go between right through the next few beads there, and I'll just let the needle come out, so then it kind of connects them a little bit better. And then what I'll do is I will adjust this here, and then I will tack it down right here. So then it kind of smoothed out the lines and made all the beads look connected there. So then what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna go for my next color of the Pride rainbow flag, which will be orange. So your beads, you can just make a little mess on your beading mat, and you can clean them up after. Just gonna be getting out my orange here. Perfect. All right, so to start the next row of beads, what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your thread that's going to hold your beads and your needles. Instead of going from right outside the cab like you did for the first one, you're gonna kind of eyeball and see where you're gonna poke out to start your next row of beads. So you won't want it super close here. You'll want it just maybe a little bit more away from it, so it has just a little bit more space there, so the beads don't look super crowded and so they don't look as if they're overlapping each other. And then you're just gonna start the whole process again. So you're just gonna be starting the orange beads now. So you'll grab your 6 to 8 is usually a pretty common number of beads people use at a time there. Come on. Perfect. And then we're gonna start to tack down our orange beads here. We're just gonna do another row of orange now. So going between the first 2 beads once again with my needle and thread that I'm using to tack my beads down. And I'm gonna tack down my first 2 beads here. And then you're just gonna repeat the process till you go around and cover an entire circle of orange beads. And then, so I am running out of thread with the needle and thread that I'm using to stitch my beads down. So what I'm gonna do is I will cut it. Some beaders prefer to cut it so that they can tie it down. I will just take my lighter and I will just seal it down to the pellin with that. It's always held for my beadwork, so that's the method that I use. Yeah, and that'll basically hold those beads for a while. So once again, just threading my needle. Perfect. So once you have it double or triple knotted, you'll just cut off the extra thread there. And then yeah, this will be your needle and thread that you're using to stitch your needles down, your beads down with. Perfect, so I got another 8 beads. And yeah, once you have your second needle threaded there, you're just gonna continue on stitching them down like you were from the next 2 beads there. So I'm just gonna stitch those down again. Perfect. And I will continue on there, just like that. Then as you keep going, you can kind of eyeball how much space will fit whatever beads there as you keep going. So once again, I'm just completing my second row of beads here. So I'm gonna go through the last 4 beads. So I'll go between both of them, right there. And then the last 2 beads I'll go over as well to stitch down. And then once again, after I stitch those last 2 beads down to complete my row, I'll take my needle and thread that's holding my beads, and I will push that through the next few beads beside them. And then I'll just pull that out here, pulling that through, and then I'll just stitch it down right here. So that kind of cleans up the row and makes them look a little more connected. So then we're going to be starting our next row of beads, which will be yellow. So again, I'm going to kind of poke the needle through, just so it's not super close to the last row of beads, but just enough so that it's not like super far away either. You'll just want it so that they're next to each other, not overlapping. So kind of gauged out my space there. And we're going to start collecting our yellow beads now and stitching those down. Perfect. So once again, you're just going to be picking up 6 to 8 beads, whatever you're most comfortable with. Perfect. And we'll get started on our third row of beads here, going on our pride color yellow of the flag. So just stitching down every 2 beads once again, repeating the process till you're finished the yellow row of beads. Perfect. All right, starting my next color here. We'll get that ready. Once again, you're just trying to space it out so it's not overlapping your previous color. So about that much space I'd say is good. And then the next color of the pride flag that we're going to be working with will be the green. Perfect. And once again, just grabbing 6 to 8 beads, whatever you're most comfortable with. All right, so I'm starting my next row of blue beads here. So I already went through the back and kind of spaced them out so they won't overlap with the green beads and the other beads I've already beaded so far. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab 6 to 8 beads again, whatever you're comfortable with. Perfect, and then I'm gonna get started on my row of blue beads. So what I will do is I'll use my index finger and my thumb to pull the beads so that they're nice and tight there. You won't wanna pull them too hard so that they kind of overlap. And then you're gonna go between the first 2 beads and you're gonna tack those down. And you're gonna continue that process for the rest of the blue beads. So you're just gonna go between every 2 beads with your needle and thread that you're using to tack your beads down. And you'll just stitch every 2 beads down. All right, so going on to our very last color of the pride flag, which is purple. We'll get our beads ready. Perfect. And then we'll get our thread and needle ready that's going to hold the beads. I usually use the longer of the two threads there for this one. And I'll poke that through the top just to leave some space between the purple beads and the blue beads. And I'll start beading them again. So just finishing up the last row of purple beads here, I will take my string and I will push it through the next few beads, and then I will tack it down. Like so, just going through however many beads and stitching that down. Perfect. So next what we're going to do is we are going to seal off our thread and needles here. So what I like to do at the end of the flat stitching portion is I like to tie both of them together, sorry. So I'll take both of these and I'll tie them together. After I have my little knot tied, I will cut close to the knot here just to leave a little bit of space. And then to seal off the knot here, what I'll do is I'll burn it like I explained earlier. Then just press that down and that holds perfectly. So then the next step that you're going to need to do, it will be to cut out your flat stitched item. So for this one, I'll cut first, just not super close, right tight to the beads. You'll want to leave a little bit of space. And again, this is just my method. So I'm going to go around, I'll get my full piece cut out here. Perfect. And then to get your edges kind of fine and closer of the pellin to the beads, what I'll do is I'll take my lighter and I'll just kind of singe the edges there a little bit, just so they're closer to the beads. So I'll just kind of burn all the way around, so then the white pellin won't be exposed once you do your edging beads and everything else. So just going all the way around, singeing the pellin so it's close to the beads. Perfect, pretty much finished here. So then next what I'm going to do is I will take a pen, I will take my flat stitched item to the vinyl that we're using, and then I will just trace out my flat stitched item. So this vinyl backing will be stitched and glued to the back of the flat stitched item. So I'm just tracing around. Perfect. Almost cramped a little there. And then I'm going to cut out my circle of the vinyl. So I'll just cut this a little smaller and cut from this piece here like so. And then I will cut out my piece for the back of my keychain. So just cutting out my rounded vinyl here. And then next, this step isn't really mandatory, this is just kind of how I do it. You'll take whatever glue you're using and you will apply that to the back center of your flat stitched item, like so here. So I'll get the glue sealed up. And then basically I will attach my flat stitched item to my vinyl, like so. And super glue dries really fast, so you'll just kind of want to make sure that you line it all up really good there. Perfect. And then if the vinyl isn't perfect to the size of beads, once it's actually glued, you can just kind of trim off the excess vinyl there. Here. Perfect. All right, so now we're almost ready to edge our keychain. The next thing that we'll need to do is we'll need to cut out a strip of vinyl to attach your keychain to your actual flat stitch piece. So just like a thin strip, I'd say, I'll draw a line for reference. Depending on the size of the item you're using, I'd say probably about that for thickness is pretty adequate. So just kind of eyeball a piece of vinyl there. Perfect. Maybe a little bit more than that. Perfect. So for this one here, what you're going to do is you'll take your strip of vinyl. You'll want the blue exposed, so what you're going to do is you'll take the one blue part and you're going to tuck that in between your flat stitch piece and the vinyl in the middle. You'll want it more centered depending on the design of what you're doing, but most instances you'll want it kind of centered there. So what I am going to do is I am going to take some super glue. A moment here, if I can get this lid off. And I will just kind of glue the one piece here. And then this is going to be ready to tuck between the vinyl and the flat stitch piece. So you're going to kind of eyeball the middle here. I usually kind of gauge it out by putting it over top of the center. And then I'll just put my glued piece down. In some instances where, say, if you don't have any glue left over, what you can do is you can use your thread and needle and kind of stitch it together so that it stays in place. Also, depending on the glue you use as well. Super glue holds really well, so I won't need to, but say for other glues that are slow drying, what you can do is you can use your needle and thread, go through the front and back here, and then you'll just kind of stitch and attach your little piece of vinyl to your hand stitched item like that. So I'm just using super glue today, and what I'm going to do is I will tuck the key ring there, just around the vinyl, and then I will flip the vinyl back to the inside there. So then basically my options from this point are to stitch or else to glue it. I'm gonna do a little bit of both for this piece here. So then I will take my needle and thread, and then you see how it's pretty much attached with the glue there. I will go through the back part, and to hide the stitch, I will go on the inside of the vinyl, and I'll just kind of poke through the sides here. So going through the back, and then your needle will go right through the front here. And then, yeah, you'll use your needle and thread to stitch those in there, just for extra hold for your keychain piece. And then through the other piece here right away. Perfect, right through the back there. So we'll stitch those down. And I'm just gonna cut this excess thread here as well that's hanging off my first stitch for the vinyl strip that holds the keychain. And then I'll do the same thing. I'm just gonna burn it so that the thread goes right down there and seals. Perfect. All right. So that part's done. I will do the exact same thing here to the other side of the thread. So I did only 2 stitches here just because we're using super glue, just because I know it has a really strong hold and it dries like pretty much immediately. If it were any other slower drying glue, I'd probably stitch through the little vinyl strip a little bit more than this, but I know that it will work out. Perfect, so then I burn that thread off there to seal it. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of extra glue to the vinyl strip here, just so it holds in place well here. And then So you could squish it from the middle after applying your glue, but that would push the glue towards like the outside, which will kind of make it hard to edge. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna push from the outside so that the glue goes down. Perfect. So now all of the flat stitching and the assembling of the keychain's done. So we just have to edge the piece now to finish it off. So the edging method that I'm going to use today will be the 3-bead edging method. I will quickly thread my needle and then show you how that works. And for your edging thread, because it's only one needle and one thread that you're using to edge your projects with, I do recommend like a lot longer piece of thread than you'd normally use, just because you kind of go through the thread a lot faster since it's only the one you're using. And then you don't have to rethread and start from the middle when you're already halfway edged. So now I'm just going to cut my thread here, thread my needle, and then we'll get ready to edge. So I'm going to start my 3-bead edging here on my flat stitched item now that I have the keychain ready and my needle and thread ready. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go as close as I can to my vinyl strip here to kind of help extra seal that. So I'll go right through the back of the vinyl to the closest bead that I can to that strip there. And then I'll just push my needle out through the front. So some people like to go through the front and then back through the front and up again once they have it edged. I'm just gonna tie it off and then I'm gonna burn the thread there so it seals. Perfect. And this is my way of doing the edging beads. So then, yeah. What you're gonna do for the 3-bead edging method once you go through your first starting bead is you're gonna grab whatever 3 beads that you're gonna use. So I'm just gonna use random colors here now that I have all of mine in a row. So I'm gonna grab my 3 beads here. I'll take those. So you're gonna take your thumb and your finger and you're just gonna kind of pull those beads down. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna count out 3 beads from the first one that you went through. So this, your string's right there, the next 3 beads, 1, 2, 3. You're gonna go out through the 3rd bead with your needle that's holding your edging beads. And you're just gonna push it through the front and pull that all the way down here. Pulling that all the way down so the beads are pulled down, and you're just gonna make sure that the starting thread and the other side are just around the 3 beads. And then you'll pull it tight. So then once you have your 3 edging beads attached, what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your needle and thread and you'll go through the bottom of the last bead there, which will be my blue one. Just only the last bead that you've done, and you'll pull it through to tighten that. And then you're ready for your next 3 edging beads. So I'll get those ready. So again, just 3 beads for the 3-bead edging method, the one that I'm using for today. Perfect. And once again, I am just going over the next 3 beads there from the last one I did. So 1, 2, 3, going through that 3rd last bead, right through the front, pulling that all the way through. And then once again, you're just making sure that it's wrapped around the 3 beads there, and then you'll pull it tight. So then once you have your next 3 edging beads in place, you'll just go through the last one, the bottom of it. Perfect. And then you'll pull your needle through to kind of flip it up like that. So then you will just continue that process. Perfect. And once again, going over your next 3 beads here. So that's 1, 2, 3, poking that through the front and pulling that tight again. And then just making sure it wraps around the 3 beads like so. Perfect. And then going through that last bead, the bottom of it once again, and flipping it up. And you'll just continue the process right around till you're on to your last edging beads there. Awesome, so now that I have the, the beaded keychain fully edged, I will take my thread here, and what I'm gonna do for this one, just because it's the last, is I will take the 2 longer pieces of thread after I cut the needle off. I will just triple tie this one like so. And then I will cut off all the extra string here. Nice and short there. And then I will just burn this little remaining thread just to extra seal that knot there. So yeah, here is the finished and edged piece here. Basically, you flat stitch all of your beads here and all of your rows. Once you're satisfied with however many colors you're using, for pride, we obviously used all the pride colors. You're gonna go around to your back of your piece there. You'll glue the vinyl. You'll make your little attachment with the vinyl to hold your keychain as well. And then you'll edge around basically till you get all the way around your little keychain, and that is how you finish your beaded keychain once your edging beads go all the way around. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. You can follow me on all my socials at Keller Island Design Co. That's on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Happy Pride Month.